This afternoon, it's all about research grants. So these are organisations that research is their business. So they weren't partnered with Kantar. They were left all on their own to do some more in-depth research projects, and kudos to them all. They were given a very short time frame. We asked for shovel-ready projects that would test new service delivery models or adapted service delivery models, or really start to robustly provide evidence for existing service delivery models. So there were 6 grant recipients in this, and just as an aside, we were talking over the lunch break about how people got into this program. For those of you online, those of you who weren't presenting, we put out a call for expressions of interest about a year ago, and we invited people to apply for the grants, both the capacity building grants and the research grants, and we were really impressed by the calibre of the applications, but we had to make a call, so there was an assessment process. So it was a peer reviewed competitive process for the capacity building grant recipients and the research grant recipients. I think we've recognised this morning that those hard to reach populations, culturally linguistically diverse, First Nations groups, men aren't well represented in these grants, so we need to think about how we can support those sorts of organisations as well as support these organisations to better reach into those groups. But I'll move on now to those that were awarded a research grant, and the first speaker is Joseph Abdo, and Joseph is speaking from the Illawarra Shoalhaven Local Health District and the University of Wollongong. And it's an evaluation of video-based information for family and friends of people with alcohol and other drug use concerns. So welcome, Joseph.
Good afternoon, everyone. Really glad to be here today to present. Before I start, I just want to pay respects to the traditional custodians of the land, to elders past, present and emerging, and to pay respects to that the land we're on is unceded and will remain that way. So thank you for having me here today. My name is Joseph. I am presenting on behalf of the project team today to talk to you about the development and evaluation of videos for families and friends. So we'll just go to the next one. There we go. So the background for this research was that the research team conducted a qualitative study sometime last year that undertook 40 qualitative interviews with family and friends. 2 main gaps were found that really purported this research project. And the first gap was that many family and friends had difficulties in navigating existing support services. And also, there was a need that was mentioned by family and friends to have more video-based information available to, I guess, increase coming to support services. So the aim of this project is reflected in the gap. So the first aim was to develop a set of videos which aim to show family and friends where and how to access support, and to also provide an introduction of what is it like to get support when they do access these services. And the second was to evaluate how effective would this video information resource be once family and friends watch it, and is it effective in terms of increasing service pickup. So the methodology was co-design. So we worked with various family and friends with lived experiences, and also we worked with various stakeholders across the community who delivered programs. Overall, in the co-design methodology, we had 9 participants. The first workshop, we bring a script that was pre-drafted, and we asked participants to discuss it and talk about the language or what the script will look like in the video. And so it was really about going back and forth and getting the participants to express their opinions. And in the interim, participants also had the opportunity to contact me, myself, to go back and forth about things they liked, things they didn't, and any changes needed to make. And we also held team meetings with our project team in between to make sure we're across as part of that co-design methodology. And workshop 2, we bring back the script and we reviewed it to make sure that the participants were happy with it who were in both workshops. And workshop 3 will be upcoming for the video evaluation. So across the findings, I'm not going to go too much detail into this because of time, but I can sit here all day talk about these things because they were really crucial. What came out of the workshops was primarily, there were 4 themes or video episodes that we wanted to conduct. The first one was an introductory video that really pulls in family and friends, because a lot of the times, when we spoke to participants, they said it was like a metaphor, they were lost in the wilderness when they first came to the journey of being a carer or being looking after someone. And so what we did in the material in the episode, we kind of went to, there is hope beyond the caring role, that you're not just a carer, you're a person too. And so we wanted to increase that awareness that, yes, you may feel stuck right now, but it's not perpetual. And there are supports out there. So, and we kind of paved what the episodes will look like after that. And so then we went down to, we want to talk about what are the benefits of accessing supports, because we wanted people to come out and be proactive in accessing supports. And so some of the core beliefs that the participants spoke about at the workshops was that some of the core beliefs they believed, going to a therapy group was like, you're going to be surrounded by depressed people who are very dark and dingy rooms, and that wasn't the case, of course. So in the episodes, what we really tried to do here was to create, I guess, that the person isn't alone in their journey, but also to create the impacts of finding a support for them oneself. And then in the third theme, we looked at the experience, having lived experience of attending to support service. So what was that like? So we kind of put into the episode different services available. And in the last one, self-care. So like the themes that came up in the prior research that were presented today, there was a lot of shame and guilt, and that shame and guilt within family and friends prevented any sort of self-care because it was more like deserving and undeserving. And so we want to, in this episode, what we did was we talked about shame and guilt being very normalised, and we also went towards building hope and resilience and what that looks like through service access, but also practicing self-care. I could go on, but I'm going to jump to the next slide. So key lessons. This is an amazing project. I think, the time constraints were there because, when anything comes to co-design, you really want to hear the participant's voice, right? And so it was always about voice and deadlines, and it was just this continuous tension we had. But, that was one big restraint. And also the ethics committee, we had to keep going back and forth. So we did have to make changes to our methodological approach. Had we do those changes? How did we, jump those hurdles? Well, we had to negotiate a lot. Originally, this research project, we wanted to have the family and friends speak in it, but then ethics were like, look, you can't do that just for privacy reasons, even with consent. So we had to go back and reevaluate because we really wanted to maintain the emotionality that was coming from their voice and give them a platform. What was the best thing about the project and what went well? I think we looked at a niche area of service delivery and practice in a way because, giving voice to family and friends is one of the most important things, and I think it's not done enough. And so being able to sit and ask them questions and ask them what they think and get their perceptions, I think it's one of the best things because we gave them a platform to speak there and express themselves. And I can wholeheartedly say each person that was involved was very passionate and driven. And then what's next? So we're actually filming the video this month towards the next as well. So we'll have that available. And then we're going to have workshop 3, which will evaluate the video, and hopefully post-approval, we can just get that released. So overall, I just want to say a massive thank you to the project team for having me presented on their behalf, but also I want to acknowledge the lived experiences of the families and friends that have informed, guided and shaped this project. Also thanking our community partners and the University of Wollongong Family Drug Support and the Illawarra Shoalhaven Local Health District Drug and Alcohol Service, and for all their efforts, planning and coordination. And to also say a very big thank you for the Alcohol and Drug Foundation for their support and funding and support throughout this whole project. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Joseph. Tony's not here, but I'm just wondering, you would have seen Tony Tremihann's presentation of a video of a support group with actors. I'm just wondering what the difference is between what you're doing and what already exists.
Sorry, what was that?
Family Drug Support
Yeah?
have a video of a support
yes.
group with actors very much describing what the workshop has come up with. I'm just wondering I thought you'd be evaluating existing resources. You're creating a new resource, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a little bit different because this was to drive service engagement and participation in the community. So it was really about tailoring the expectation of what it is to come to a service, very similar to before, but it was doing it, I guess, in a very different way, where there were several different groups, because support looks very different for different people, and so not one support group fits everyone. And so we really, in this video project, we really highlighted the various supports available and different groups. And so the message, it was really about the message that support is there for you. And we really wanted to send that, whether that's a group setting or that's an individual setting. It was really about the meaning and the message that we're giving family and friends. So I hope that answers that question. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, thanks for your presentation. One of the challenges that you mentioned that came through the ethics committee about filming the participants. So how did you overcome that challenge?
I guess I have to take my hat off to the team, because I had a really good team, and a lot of collaboration, a lot of discussions in between. And then, the time constraints and COVID came, and so it was a lot of planning and just going back and forth. Also with just making sure that participants were engaged continuously throughout the project. Yeah. Thank you.
I've got the next one over here. Over here. My question was around, so it looks like it's very much tailored to the services in your community.
Yes.
Has that been beneficial, or do you know, it's probably planned now, is that because it's centred in community, is it more likely to engage people because it's about those services that exist in their community? We've heard a lot about engagement being a challenge. Does that help, having it localised?
Absolutely. It's community-based, but I think it's also translocal in the sense that, if you show this video in another state, it's still quite relevant due to this message. The other thing as well is that, a lot of services say they're inclusive, but it's not really showing on the ground. So, in this project, I guess the philosophy working behind it was that, inclusivity is always defined by the people seeking that support and that service. So it was really about, coming from that grassroots perspective to find out what is needed and what services are there, because we didn't come in to this video saying, these are the services, what do you think about them? We let them speak about their experiences, and some of their experiences spoke to those services. So we didn't come with a sort of preconceived agenda, and so that's what in workshop 1 we really just drafted a very basic script, and they just deconstructed the whole thing and put it back together in a way numerous times.
Yeah. Is it me? My question is really around how much time did participants work with the project? So how, because one thing we really struggled with was keeping people engaged continuously in the project. So one, how much time did they have to be in the project? And two, how did you get them to continue to participate and engage in the project?
Awesome question. Awesome. Because, one of the things that I guess I didn't see in hindsight is that, with family and friends, it's not that, you come do this research, see you later. And it's not that they exist in a vacuum. I mean, some of the people that we were working with that were involved in partnership on this project was that, they had crisis come week to week sometimes, and we had to really manage that. I guess what really helped was continuously engaging with them, and really just drive that partnership. And, some days they just, you would speak to them and say, look, I can't really, today's not a good day because of what's happening externally. And, you just show empathy, but it is a lot of work. And you never really know what's going to come up. But the best way I can really say to answer that question, in all honesty, is just, a lot of empathy and understanding, and giving them that voice and saying, look, it's your voice, you contribute how much you want, and that's sort of the heart of co-design.
Thanks for your presentation. Sounds like you did some amazing co-design work. I wondered if you could expand a little bit on the methodologies you used with that, but also how are you planning to distribute this video and to have the most impact given all the excellent work you've done?
So the methodology was, again, with the co-design, the first workshop, we wrote a script that was pre-drafted as an idea, right? And so we spent about an hour and a half, roughly, going back with participants or family and friends in that workshop. And when we asked them the question of well, if you had to seek support and you had to look at and watch a video that will motivate you to, access support or get information, what would you want to see in it? What would draw you to it? And so that whole conversation kind of sparked different ideas. And so that's the first part. The second part was I always gave them open access to contact me if they had any questions. And so we're going back and forth by emails, texts, and phone calls. And then we spoke, in the interim, I collaborated with the project team. And then we did workshop 2, which we had a more final draft of the script of all the information collected. And I guess too, in terms of post-approval, where this video will be shown, at first, where the next part to this project is that we're going to have an online page. And we're going to basically put it up on YouTube, have a link, and then basically we're doing online surveys as an evaluative strategy. So the survey will evaluate the effectiveness of the video based on who watches it. So that's still that's coming up in the next month or so. Really looking forward to getting that done. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
So I guess going to Gino's question, as always, some research projects raise more questions again. So starting to unpack that, do we have a sort of a generic approach to videoing the benefits of support and how to get support, or does it need to be support nature specific, like counselling versus support group versus online, to overcome those barriers? So as always, research breeds more questions. But thank you, that was terrific. So our next speakers are Noemi Tari Koreshtesh, I hope I've got that right, and Salamander Edelman from the Menzies School of Health Research in Flinders University, supporting family members and friends' individual recovery with a locally co-designed peer-led recovery program in Darwin. Welcome.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank the traditional owners of the country we're meeting on today. We'd like to also thank the Larrakia people of Darwin for the country we live and work on, and we pay our respects to our elders, past, present, and those that are emerging among us. We acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. Welcome to our presentation entitled Supporting Family Members and Friends' Individual Recovery with a Locally Co-Designed Peer-Led Recovery Program in Darwin. I'm Salamander Edelman, Circles of Support Peer Facilitator at the Lived Experience Network.
I'm Noemi Tari-Keresztes from Flinders University, and I'm co-leading this project with a team including peer facilitators, academics, and a cultural advisor listed on this slide. The research team was initially affiliated with the Menzies School of Health Research, but the project team transitioned to Flinders University and the project followed them. So that's why, because the transition still requires some paperwork, that's why we use both logos, organisation logos, on the presentation.
We would like to give a brief context to this project to highlight why this funding has been so crucial for the local community and us. In the Northern Territory, psychosocial support has not had a strong peer focus, and the evidence base of these activities is limited. The recent Darwin Peer-Led Education Program, PLEP, empowered the local peer workforce. They established the Lived Experience Network, which provides a collective and independent voice for people with lived experience of issues related to mental health, AOD and related challenges. The network developed an allyship with the research team through the evaluation of the PLEP project.
The current project includes a co-design of a locally consumer-led recovery empowering program called Circles of Support, its implementation and evaluation. The main evaluation aim is to assess the appropriateness and effectiveness of the program on participants' mental health and well-being. It also aims to explore families and friends' socio-demographic backgrounds, mental health and well-being, perceived stress and personal empowerment. Sorry. No, this.
Sorry. The Circles of Support program had been created by local people for local people, specifically those who had a loved one with an alcohol or drug problem. It is consumer-led. Peer work students have been involved in the development of the program. It was further co-designed through a consultation workshop.
The inclusion criteria to participate in the program, at least 18 years of age, living in Darwin or Palmerston area, being a family carer for someone with lived experience of AOD issues, and able to provide informed consent. The evaluation approach was co-designed in collaboration with the evaluation team, NT-land representatives, and other local lived experience representatives. It applies the mixed method approach, including individual interviews and survey with program participants, a consultation workshop, and individual interviews with local sectoral stakeholders. The survey was co-designed to make the research tool strengths-based and recovery-oriented. The research and evaluation explore participants' background, well-being, reason for participation in the program, and the main characteristic of and stressors regarding the family carer role. It also assesses the program impact and the overall experience with the program, and identifies the possible areas for improvement and challenges associated with this peer program. The project transfer has caused a 2-month delay in the project, so we have one Circles of Support program delivered, and we are getting participants for enrollment for the second program, and by the end of August we will have 2 more programs advertised. The research follows the program schedule of the delivery of the Circles of Support program. So far we have conducted a consultation workshop with 7 participants, and we have 7 pre-program survey data. The quantitative data is being analyzed with SPSS software, and the qualitative interview applies a thematic analysis. So this is just the preliminary findings from the first Circles of Support program with 7 participants. In this program, most participants were female, Australian-born, non-Aboriginal, employed in relationship between the ages of 35 and 64 with 1 or 2 children. More than 40% of the participants care for more than 1 person. Usually they are partners and parents. Most of them felt overwhelmed and rated their health as moderate. Their current stress level and their current health indicated the chance of high level of stress. And on the revised version of the recovery assessment scale, they scored 111.14, and they had the highest percentage scores on the personal recovery subscale.
Participants enjoyed and became motivated that they were not only passive program participants. They provided regular feedback that allowed facilitators to reflect on and improve the program session by session. The previous peer programs had been delivered and evaluated only among individuals with mental health, AOD and related challenges. This project addresses a gap in the service provision and research in the NT by delivering and evaluating a locally developed consumer-led program for families and friends of these individuals.
And the existing evidence base of the previously mentioned programs has been qualitative only, so we have started to build the quantitative evidence through the co-design of a recovery-oriented survey in this project. We have found it essential to revise and co-design some survey tools, because from previous participants we received the feedback that they felt disempowered by some deficits-based survey tools. The research team working closely with the NT-LAN and emerging local peer workforce to improve the degree of public participation in the research and service provision to address better people's psychosocial support needs. This project applied a consumer-led participation in the development of the Circles of Support program and the co-design participation in the survey development. The first challenge we faced was the lengthy ethics application. So they raised a couple of concerns around the sample size, whether the program is culturally appropriate for the Darwin population, and this long process and the project transfer and some additional unidentified costs caused significant challenges in the time and budget for the project team.
NT-LAN had difficulty accessing the target population because friends and family of persons with AOD issues are stigmatised and vulnerable. To meet these challenges, one, the peer facilitators introduced a 2-hour community literacy session series for anyone to attend, including some basic alcohol and drug health literacy, stages of change, and the stages of change model for families developed by the Family Drug Support. So the participants hear how the program supports families to move toward the coping stage, and these attendees act as a mouthpiece for the Circles of Support program within the community. These sessions also provide professional development for staff working with individuals experiencing AOD issues and their families. In addition, to address the concerns raised by the Ethics Committee, we involved a cultural advisor and reduced the target sample size.
So the collaboration between the research team and the NT-LAN worked very well, involving peer work students in the development of the Circles of Support program provided a workforce development component to the project, while the community literacy session series provided a professional development opportunity for the staff working with the individuals with AOD issues. The consultation workshop supported the involvement of lived experience people and gave them a voice, and participants' experience and the program impact were positive so far, but we are about to more details about the impact as more data comes in. The project team expresses their utmost thanks and gratitude to all families and friends of people who have AOD issues for contributing the co-design consultation, facilitation, program completion and participation in the evaluation. They all gave their time generously, had the courage to share their stories and provided vital information to enable the project team to develop, implement and evaluate this program. Without their valuable contribution, this pilot project wouldn't have been possible. And we just would like to wrap up with a quote reflecting on how our project team has been working together. Coming together is a beginning, staying together is a progress, and working together is a success.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. I noticed there was, which is probably not a surprise, that there was a reasonably strong gender skew towards females. Did you guys, I suppose, have any reflections on that, or is there anything that you thought about that you do to potentially engage men?
Yeah, you can.
I think from previous projects that there was strong representation of males with our other sessions that we'd run, and those people have followed through to become facilitators. So we're hoping that the male representation from our community is going to follow through with our program attendance.
And just one more comment, that we could deliver only one Circles of Support program, and that is just the data what we have is just preliminary, so we have a chance to focus more on male participants as well. I had a couple of questions.
One is I'm interested to understand a little bit more about the program itself, like what the participants actually do. And secondly, in the co-design process, given that we have a skew towards females, whether you had sort of a strong gender bias in the co-design group as well. So they're the two sorts of questions that I had.
I think Sir can answer the program part of the question, and I have just a reflection on the consultation and what you mentioned with the co-design. In the consultation workshop, I think the participant gender was balanced. There were 7 participants and there were 4 male participating in the development of the program and the content. And if you can just tell a couple of things about the program, what they do in the program, what kind of modules are involved in the circles of support program.
There's a lot of like activity-based learning and within that, and yeah, we've sort of it's been a consultative program project since it started with a project called My Recovery, and a lot of us have followed through with. I was a student of that program, and I think the program success has spoken loudly because so many of us have put our hands up to become facilitators with ongoing projects with Northern Territory Lived Experience Network, and we're a place that's been very sly of programs and projects for a very long time. So this is something people are very excited to get involved with, but we're finding that there's a bit of a slow uptake with interest because the stigma of a small town mentality really, and that's one of the things we're trying to overcome at the moment.
And with the program delivery, it's a 3-hour session every week for over 8 weeks, so it's a lot of commitment from the participants. And we have 9 modules that is addressed within the program. So it's about mental health, alcohol and drug-related misuse and co-occurring issues, recovery and ways to support recovery, identifying and responding to crisis situation, ways to support own well-being and practice self-care, managing overwhelming emotion and responses, setting boundaries on relationships, effectively communicating needs and rights, responding to stigma and discrimination, and the last one is about the local service provision and navigating the mental health and alcohol and drug service system in the NT. And yeah, this program was developed from a previous project that was the first My Recovery program in Darwin, and within that program the peer facilitators grew their skills and they became motivated to develop a locally developed program for the local people. Because of the diverse population in the NT, they experienced that they need to implement more visual and activity-based program components.
Thank you.
That was terrific. Another example of needing to be specific to the groups who are using the services that we are delivering. So our next speaker is Nicole Snowden. So Nicole is from the National Drug and Alcohol Research Centre, NDARC, and Uni New South Wales. And it's integration of community reinforcement and family training, or as the acronym goes, CRAFT, into routine service delivery by Aboriginal community primary AOD services and AOD residential rehabilitation services. So welcome, Nicole.
Hello, well there goes half my presentation. You've explained the acronym for me, so that's that's quite the acronym, isn't it? All right, before I get going, I wanted to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we're meeting on today and pay my respects to their elders past and present, and also extend that respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people that are here today. All right, so the Community Reinforcement and Family Training Program. craft. So it's primarily a behavioural program. So it came out of the States in the 70s. And what it looks at is providing that support to the family members with a relative with a substance use problem, getting them to look after themselves and try and shift some of those negative interactions that are happening in those relationships with their relative with a substance use. And there's been quite a large body of research go into craft, and we know there's about a 70% likelihood that a family member who's engaged in craft will be able to get their relative into treatment. So it was about 10 years ago. So I was a social worker in AOD service in Western New South Wales. And Professor Anthony Shake Shaft, and there he is over there, say hi. Him and a bunch of researchers came out and did some work with us, and we were some of the first workers to actually get accredited in the program. So while we were able to adapt it, we weren't actually able to trial it. So so what's happened now is some of the Aboriginal community-controlled AOD services actually approached Anthony and said, we're wanting to work more with families, what can we do? And this was the next logical step. So, looking at the feasibility, how acceptable is the program and the cost effectiveness of it. So you can see up here, I did practice saying the Aboriginal names, if you'd like me to do that. People on the Yuin land, Namba land, Wiradjuri land and Gangaji land. Wonderful people. All right. So phase one. So we worked to train the staff up in craft. We wanted to work on getting the outcome measures right as well. I'll come back to that. So we also co-designed the delivery of the program. So in phase two, it's looking at the program impact. So wanting to look at the psychological wellbeing of that family member and if there's any changes in the relative's AOD use, what the workers and the clients think, and how cost effective is it. All right, so this is a really cool opportunity to have craft delivered by Aboriginal people for Aboriginal people. So we've got 23 staff members that are trained in craft. They've got all the resources, all the knowledge to continue to deliver craft after the project end date. I just wanted to highlight what came out of some of these workshops. So we went to these workshops, we had all these UBUT outcome measures and we showed them and they said, nah, that's no good, that's not going to work. And what was suggested is using the Indigenous Risk Impact Screening Tool. So that's a culturally appropriate tool. It's got 6 items relating to mental health, 7 items to AOD. And you use it with a person who's got a substance use problem. So these guys were using it quite frequently in their services already. And so what they suggested doing was adapting it so that we ask the family member about their mental health and then asking them about their relative's AOD risk. So you can see up here, in the original iris you say, do you ever feel out of control with your drinking and drug use? And in the adapted version we say, does your relative ever feel out of control with their drinking drug use? Yeah, so now we've got a culturally appropriate tool with face validity. All right, so 23 Aboriginal health workers trained. So we asked them what they thought of the training, and 100% said that it met their expectations and that they were ready to deliver craft. We also asked them to rate the quality of their training out of 5, and they gave an average score of 4.5 out of 5. And also the quality of the trainer, and they gave the quality of the trainer 4.8 out of 5. So everyone's keen for another catch-up, and they've told me they want to do that in far north Queensland, so I'll talk to Anthony about that after. All right, so we're in the midst of phase 2 now. What we'd originally intended to do, we wanted to do a step wedge randomised controlled trial. It's quite robust method of trialling interventions. But what the feedback that we had, the services wanted to do it collaboratively. They wanted to do it together, and so we moved to a pre-post design. So it's rapidly, things are happening, fast. I've got here that we've got 4 participants completed consent baseline data, but since I submitted the slides to Craig, we've got 7 people that have started the modules. So talking to the staff, they're needing quite a bit of lead-up time for engagement, doing, getting out in community. These guys, they haven't worked with family members before. Like, this is a really new way for them to do things. So this rapid turnaround of get trained, go right now, go out and do it. So that's a fantastic, fantastic result. So the coming weeks, we're going to do some focus groups with the workers, and so the other day when I caught up with the staff, I asked them, tell me, give me some quotes I can put in my slide. And, some of the feedback we've received so far is that they're wanting to tailor some of the support they're giving to family members when the relative goes into treatment, when they go into a rehab. So CRAFT is primarily getting that relative into treatment, but they're wanting, some extra steps along the way. And we know that, it's a revolving door for a lot of these guys. So we'll do some work on that in the coming weeks, so watch this space. All right, the challenges. So we had intended to get everything, everyone trained up by December 2021. We had ethical reviewers coming down with COVID. We had floods. There was border closures. Staff had to be redeployed to work on food crises. Was there a plague of locusts? I think it's a blur. So what we did, we did it in a staggered approach. We had to be really flexible, and we ended up with 4 workshops between December 2021 and May 2022. So a highlight for me. So 1 participant has finished doing CRAFT, and the feedback that I've gotten from the staff is that this participant, she's doing much better. She's singing the praises. Apparently she's screaming from the rooftops about it. And what it's meant for her is that she's been able to engage her treatment-resistant partner into treatment. So, that's pretty tops. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks to the staff, ADF.
What's CRAFT? What do they do?
Yeah, so it's got the ideas of, we're naturally motivated by rewards. So in substance use, it's a rewarding behaviour, and what we try to do is come up with ways, pro-social ways, healthy behaviours that are also rewarding, and try and replace some of that. So it's got some of those, really key sort of behavioural stuff of what's a competing behaviour. Like, there's a lot of background stuff that you have to look at, really technical, and hopefully for the participant, that's not what it looks like. It feels fairly natural. Yeah. Yeah.
I've just got all the questions. So you've talked a bit about the training for the Aboriginal health workers.
Yep.
And the I guess hesitancy they had in delivering it, and there was lots of time pressures and obviously other things going on. How easy do you think it will be to transfer what you're learning in this into other communities, where it sounds as though you've got very strong connections into these communities? Is it something you think others could pick up and run? Do you think you'd have to deliver it? What's your thinking around its general, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Look, I've sort of got the benefit that when they first brought it out here, I was a worker and I did the training, and then it was you now go out and do it. And now seeing a group of other people doing that, so maybe them being my shoes, no, I don't think. I think it's a lot of groundwork to get people ready, because it's such a new space for workers. So even, 10 years on from the service I used to work in, they're still not doing much with families. That's not their core business. And so getting AOD clinicians to get into that mindset, there's still a lot of work there. Yeah.
Any thoughts on how you might overcome those barriers?
Well, doing things like this. It's a progress. It'll be a couple of decades before we actually see the fruits of what this is today. Yeah. Sorry to be a downer on us.
I feel like I'm also asking lots of questions, but I had one that was interesting, sort of follow on from that. We've heard a lot today around a lot of the family and friends work is like a secondary thing that people do by default because they come in contact with family and friends through the process. How do we, and it sounds like that through that process and engaging with family and friends, it kind of results in a better outcome for the individuals experiencing the drug-related problems as well as the families. So how do we work with services to prioritise that, because it does achieve a better outcome for both, and it sounds like it's also a better experience for both as well?
It's money. It's money, it's roles. Say having a dedicated family worker. It's like I said, I think when you've got these clinicians and you're working in this space, things are tough. You've got phone calls, people are in crisis day after day, you've got suicidality, you've got child protection issues, and then you come along and you say, I want you to come and work with these families now. And that's a really hard, turning point. Okay, this is really different. This is, so many more different things for me to do. So I think it is about investing in it because it's so worthwhile. Families, they don't know what is happening, and quite often in services you've got the family members will ring up and they're panicking and they're doing things like they'll come and pick them up out of rehab, straight up. They'll be there and it's like, well, that's obviously something that we can work to address because that's continuing that cycle. Thanks.